Okay, good morning everybody. My name is George Sims and this is the 1040 Talks. The series is composed of the 10 most powerful and important things or concepts that I've learned in my 40 years of business. And of course the goal is to provide a formula for success track and save people the time and agony of making useless mistakes. And who we can help? We think we can help almost anybody because these concepts apply both to our personal lives and business lives. They go across all different areas. So these are the different topics: formula for success, chief aim and primary goals, AutoSuggestion, which is what we're going to be talking about today, the mastermind, which is what we'll be talking about next week, organization of prospect list, the 5-step model, sales psychology model, understanding people and personality profiles, how to maximize results from networking events, network marketing versus traditional marketing, how to build a $15,000 plus residual income stream. We also want to go back and remind ourselves that our success is a function of us as individuals. So, and I break that down into 5 different categories for the individual. Number 1 is mental, emotional, financial, physical, and spiritual. And in the vehicle part, the selection is one of the most important aspects, is how to select a proper vehicle. I always consider suitability, viability, and reliability. The quote there is, which I will attribute to myself actually, the vehicle must never be the limiting factor in our success. The height of our success should be limited only by our ability to develop the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial aspect of our own being. And I've said this 1,000 times, is that as I'm out there talking with people, I find usually in a great majority of the time that 2 things are true. Number 1, that people do not have the proper vehicle that they're suited to, or it's not a viable vehicle, or it's not a dependable vehicle that it may be around 5-10 years from now to pay them the money that they deserve. The second thing I found is that too often people are not willing to do what it takes to develop themselves individually. And I always use the old bicycle story for that, is that we want our bicycle to be able to go as fast and as long and as hard as we can pedal it. We don't want it to break down. And then we want to condition ourselves so that we can pedal that bicycle faster, harder, and farther. Okay, it's a simple analogy. So what we end up with is working in the areas of both personal development and in business development concepts. And today's topic is AutoSuggestion, which is personal development. Which is obviously the personal development category. The 1040 Talks are about the 10 most important concepts I've learned in 40 years of business. I'd have to say that AutoSuggestion is probably one of the top 3. So how important is this? I'm not sure how important it is to you, but to me, it is absolutely one of the most important things that I've learned in my life, because it enabled me to turn myself around basically 180 degrees. And I like to tell the story that before I went into service, I had gone to 3 different colleges, pretty much a failure. I was trying to play basketball, had not much sense of direction, had no good habits other than playing ball, and I guess maybe too interested in the girls. Certainly wasn't interested in studying, and really did not have a long-term plan. I knew about Think and Grow Rich, and when I was in Korea, I had somebody to send me the book. I started reading it, and I started practicing the power and the concept of AutoSuggestion. And I came home from Korea with a 15-year plan. And that plan was pretty darn simple. And you'll learn in a few minutes how you are able to get that plan to work. But primarily the plan was I wanted to come home and I wanted to spend 5 years getting an education, and I wanted a technical undergraduate with an MBA. because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to do something spectacular or different and successful. And I knew that if I got a technical undergraduate with an MBA, then that would give me the ability and the educational background to do almost anything I wanted to do, whether it be an entrepreneur, corporate world, any business, or anything. And the plan was to get married, because I knew that I would not have the discipline to do that as a single person. And then that was 5 years. And then the next 2 years, I wanted to be out there in the workforce to find the vehicle to use. And then I wanted to be able to work in that environment for 8 years to give myself, so that by the time I was 40 years old, I would be a millionaire. Simple plan, right? That doesn't sound like anything extraordinary for a lot of people, but when you consider where I came from, it's pretty extraordinary. So, to make a long story short, I was able to come back home from the military, came back home in May. Oddly enough, I met and got married, met my wife, and I got married, met my wife in July, got married in December, started back to school in January, and I was able to go through a 5-year program at speed in 4 years because I was working for an engineering company, and I was able to count that as my co-op. And my schedule was that I went to school every morning, I worked every afternoon, I worked 20 hours a week. I came home at 5 o'clock. I started studying at 7. I studied from 7 to 11, Monday through Thursday. Took off on Friday night, was date night. Studied 6 hours on Saturday and 6 hours on Sunday. And I did that summer, winter, spring, and fall. And I started doing that when I was 25 years old, from the time I was 25 until I was 29 or so. Again, that was such diabolically opposite. So I can just tell you this. There is no way on God's green earth that I could have done that ever without AutoSuggestion. And I'm not trying to impress you with my story, but for me it's real life. So if I get a little emotional about this concept, you'll know why. Because it enabled me to change my life. I was able to go through school, I was able to identify my vehicle, and I didn't quite become a millionaire by the time I was 40, but I was close to it, and I was making a lot of money, and was being very, very successful. And it just all happened basically because of AutoSuggestion, okay? So I wanted to tell that because I wanted you to know how much it means and why I think it's so important. And I have seen it work for countless other people, or I've seen it work against countless other people, where they would start doing it and then stop it, and then it would not work for them. So this is, so you notice I said I came home from the service in 1969. That's a long time ago, okay? So that means that I've been working and teaching this concept for that many years, and I've seen a lot of people go through the process. Where did it come from? Well, a book entitled Think and Grow Rich is one of the 2 most important concepts in that book. And this book has been credited with generating more millionaires than any other book ever published. Andrew Carnegie basically put the idea for this book in Napoleon Hill's mind when they were talking about and trying to put the science of success philosophy in the colleges of the United States. In other words, Andrew Carnegie, America's first billionaire, challenged Napoleon Hill to assimilate and to put down in a book or on paper the success principles so that more people could be successful. And then that's how Think and Grow Rich was eventually published. In that, basically, we talk about the greatest gift, which is your mind. Because you see, our mind is the only thing that man has total control of. Think about that. We do not have control of our environment. We talk in the 5-step model, Kevin, about how we can control our environment to a great deal. 80% of the time, okay? It's all we ever want. We don't have control of Mother Nature. We don't have control of anything other than, we don't have control of other people. We only have control of our own mind. But in order to have control of it, we must understand it. We must understand it. When This was when in this first conversation about this, when Napoleon Hill was talking to Andrew Carnegie told him basically, he said, you know, that there's a universal truth that everyone brings at birth the equivalent of 2 sealed envelopes. One is labeled the riches you may enjoy, and one is labeled the penalties you must pay if you neglect to take control of your own mind. What are the riches that you may enjoy? Well, number 1 is sound health. Number 2 is peace of mind. Number 3 is labor of love. In other words, the ability to be able to do what you want to do and to be able to do what you enjoy doing in life. Number 3 is the freedom from fear and worry. Number 4 is a positive mental attitude. And number 5, material riches of your own choice and quantity. Is that powerful? Material riches of your own choice and quantity. Are material riches bad? Not at all. They're bad without everything else, though, aren't they? But if you have sound health, peace of mind, labor of love, relationships, family, friends, and all those things, okay? Now, what are the penalties you must pay if you neglect to take possession of one's own mind? Ill health. Because what happens when we're not in control, we do what? We don't take care of our health. We abuse our bodies. Fear and worry. Instead of being free from fear and worry, we exist in the world of fear and worry. Indecision and doubt. Frustration and discouragement. Poverty and want. And a whole host of other evils, including envy, greed, jealousy, anger, hatred, and superstition. Let's talk about that a minute. Think about some people that you know or have known who live in the moment, who are in a constant state of turmoil because they haven't made a plan, they haven't internalized that plan, and their life is filled with ill health, fear, worry about the future, indecision, don't know what to do, doubt, frustration, constant frustration, and usually poverty. And then those other things creep in there because usually, you know, most of the people that I know that are successful don't demonstrate those other evils like envy, greed, jealousy, anger, hatred, and superstition to any major degree. So let's talk about this thing called AutoSuggestion for a minute. My favorite quote is Ralph Waldo Emerson. There is nothing capricious in nature, and the implanting of a desire indicates that its gratification is in the constitution of the creature that feels it. There is nothing capricious in nature, and the implanting of a desire indicates that its gratification is in the constitution of the creature that feels it. Well, said another way, by Napoleon Hill, all wealth is created in the mind. If you can see it and feel it and believe it, you can achieve it. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. By implementing the concepts of AutoSuggestion, the concept of AutoSuggestion, we're able to start the process of preparing ourselves personally for our journey of success. Some of you were at Simone's presentation the other day, and she drew a stick man. This has been used for years and years and years to talk about this. So this is my human being. Don't you like it? I mean, really love it. This is my individual. What we're talking about here is a relationship between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. How do things get in to our conscious mind or subconscious mind? First of all, we have to understand that the only way that something can get into our subconscious mind is through our conscious mind. So kind of think of it like a computer maybe. You know what the difference between RAM and ROM is? Well, RAM is random access memory, which means that that's where the computer comes up here and puts stuff in memory and operates on it and all that kind of stuff. ROM is your permanent memory. So in other words, it comes up here, it does things to it, makes a decision, then it puts it away. And that's down there to stay until something else replaces it. We kind of act in the same way. In other words, our conscious brain takes information operates on it, and then puts some of it away to our subconscious mind. So we've got the senses, right? We've got hearing, we've got smelling, we have touching, we have sight, we have taste. Are these senses that are bringing this data and information in to our human brain? But there's also one more, and that's the sixth sense, the unspoken language. Think about this. How often do you think about that when you're meeting somebody or talking with somebody about the unspoken language that you're transmitting to those people? Richard just said a few minutes ago about something about people either like you or don't like you or something like that, okay? It's true. They're either getting a good positive vibe from you or a negative vibe or none at all or kind of disregard or whatever. They're getting some vibe from you. It's the sixth sense, the unspoken language. It has to do with a lot of things. The way we look, the way we stand, the way we feel. There's something going on, folks, above and beyond us. I'm not going to get into religion here. I don't care about all that, okay, right now in this topic. Even when I talked about personal development, remember one of the topics was spiritual, right? When I'm talking about spiritual in relation to the human being, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the ability to believe, okay, something. The ability to believe. Because when we believe, then certain things happen in this sixth sense that's above and beyond the words and all those other things, all those other senses, okay? The other thing we have to understand is that the body takes commands from the conscious or the subconscious minds and transforms those commands into action. Either or. Because you see, that's showing up here that on the left side there, the conscious mind controlling the action, or on the right side, the subconscious mind controlling the action. Okay, let's talk about this relationship a little bit between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and the commands that go to it. If we do not overrule through conscious intervention, the subconscious controls our actions. If we do not overrule and intervene on a conscious basis, the subconscious is going to control our activities and who we are. The problem most of us have is that we have the wrong stuff in our subconscious. So we have to mentally intervene every day on a conscious basis to do what we should be doing or to do what's right. Because we have so much stuff coming in from our world nowadays that's either negative, non-productive, or customary for other people, or whatever it is, or that we've allowed to get down there. Now, here's the other thing that we have to understand. We have to understand that it's difficult to replace what's there. Very difficult. Because you see, that's their home. We have a habit down there. Think about it this way. We have a habit down here. We have a habit of doing something that's not necessarily good for us, or that's not what we really consciously want to do. And that habit's down there. And that habit is controlling our life every day unless we consciously intervene. So one day we consciously intervene. We change our destiny for that one day. But guess what? Tomorrow, who's in control? Our subconscious. So how do we get it out of there? How do we change it? Can we just say, okay, I'm going to get rid of that today, and it's gone? No. I mean, it's like a battle. I mean, this thing, that's their home. And it's like a visitor trying to get into somebody's home. This new habit is trying to replace that old habit one time. There's no way in heck it's going to be able to do that, just one mental decision. And say, okay, oops, I've changed. No way. It's fighting. It's fighting for their own place in your environment. And it's going to stick right there and fight the war. The only way, I don't care, the only way is through repetition, is to put something down there through repetition so often that it finally wears down the old habit to where it replaces the old habit now with a new habit or new value or new concept or new idea, and that's the only way being can ever change. Through repetition. Only way. So how do we go about doing this? Autosuggestion. Or self-hypnosis, which is something else. We'll talk about that a little bit. And many philosophers have made the statement that man is the master of his own destiny, earthly destiny, but most of them have failed to say why. People may become the master of themselves and their environment because they have the power to influence their own subconscious mind, but most people do not know how to do it because they do not understand the power of autosuggestion. They do not understand the concept of autosuggestion. And most of them do not have the conscious discipline to put something in their subconscious even long enough to replace the old habit. Okay?
How long do you think it takes?
Different habits, different time frames, different people, different time frames. But here's what I know, is that it works. It works, and it doesn't make any difference how long it takes. If that is your only way of changing oneself, why not do it if they want to change? Because nature has so built people that they have control over the material which reaches their subconscious mind through their five senses. Autosuggestion is a term which applies to all suggestions and all self-administered stimuli which reaches one's mind through the five senses and the sixth sense. Autosuggestion is self-suggestion. It is the agency of communication between that part of the mind where a conscious thought takes place and that which serves as a seat of action for the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind takes any orders given it through repetition in a spirit of absolute faith and acts upon these orders. Through this process, all thoughts which have been emotionalized, just come back to this, emotionalized, given feeling, and mixed with faith, begin immediately to transfer themselves into their physical equivalent or counterpart. Faith is a state of mind which may be induced or created by affirmation or repeated instruction to the subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion. Now, how many people in here have been through the five-step model? Right? Remember, what was the fourth step before people will take action? Belief. Belief. Here we get back to this belief, faith. Because you see, it's not good enough if we're going to put stimuli try to put stimuli into our subconscious, we have to mix it with emotion. Because without emotion, there cannot be belief or faith. And I'm going to ask you to do this right now in a very simple format. This doesn't have to be elaborate. But I want you to fix in your mind the exact amount of money or goal that you desire right now. In other words, what is it? It could be a 5-year goal. It could be a 10-year goal. It could be just a level of goal. It could be, say, I want to have this. It doesn't have to be money. It can be some goal. Just think about it for a couple minutes. You may have already had this. You may already have this in your mind. It is not sufficient, and you talk about being exact, because it's not sufficient merely to say, I want plenty of money. Be definite as to the amount or to the goal. I want a new car that looks like this, or I want $1 million, or I want a spouse, or I want, a new home, and I want, you see what I mean? So put it down. Just write it down right now. Anything. All right. Second, we must determine exactly what we intend to give in return for the money or the goal we desire. Remember when I had my plan? What was my commitment to get what I wanted? Studying, and my commitment to study on a regular basis, right? Because I can remember I'm 26 years old. All my friends were at the pool. I lived in an apartment complex while I was going to school. My friends were at the pool at 7 o'clock at night. And I have to start studying. Is that easy in the summertime? No way. When you're 26 years old? Not at all. And I couldn't have done it if I had to make the conscious decision every day to do it. Couldn't have done it. No way. So everything costs something. Now, establish a definite date when you intend to possess the money or goal that you desire. Fourth, create a plan for carrying out your desire. Remember, I came home with a 15-year plan, right? It was basically broken down into 5 years, 2 years, and 8 years. Yours may not be as long. It may be shorter. It can be any time frame. The plan doesn't have to be in total detail right now, but it should be in somewhat of a general detail, okay? Now here's the key. Begin at once, whether you're ready or not, to put this plan into action. I've told this story several times, but I think it might warrant telling again. I used to have a guy, when I built my first organization, had some really quality people, really, really sharp, and had some people who I loved, but they didn't get it. And this particular individual had even gotten to be a personal friend of mine, but he just didn't get it, because about every 2 or 3 months, well, first of all, you have to understand I had levels of management to where he was actually supposed to go to his first level of management, second level of management, yada, yada, yada. And he kept asking for an appointment with me. So he came to me and he said, well, George, you know, I've got to get going. And I said, okay, tell me what's going on. He said, well, these things that, you know, it's not working, you know, it's not working. I've done this, and this is not working. And I would say, okay, well, and I would break it down to the very simplest thing, because I knew he wasn't doing those things. Not with the right attitude, not with the right intensity, not with anything. He was the nicest guy in the world, but he wasn't doing those things because it worked for those people who were following the procedures, right? I knew that. I've proven it myself prior and everything else. So I took the very first step and gave him the very first step. And I said, I don't want you to think about anything else. I just want you to master this, okay? And then report back to your managers and talk with them about how it's going. Well, I didn't hear anything for a long time, but his production didn't go much at all. So about 3 or 4 months later, you know, he wanted another appointment. I said, okay. He said, walked in the door, and I said, okay, what's going on? He said, well, George, I just got to get going. So in other words, for him, he never started. It was like something else had to happen before he could start. You know what I mean? And if you ever notice in our plans, usually when we make our plans right there, we're not prepared, and be honest about this, are you prepared to start that plan right now? Probably not. Would that be an honest assessment? In other words, is it really a plan, or is it a dream, or is it a hope, or is it a wish, or is it something I'm going to do next week after this happens, or after I've done this, or after I've done that? You see, so one of the primary principles of autosuggestion is not only must we make a plan, but we must put it into action whether we're ready or not. Whether we're ready or not, because most of us feel like that we must prepare in order to start to put our plan into action. All right, number 5. Write out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money or goal you intend to acquire. Name the time limit for its acquisition. State what you intend to give in return for the money or the goal, and describe clearly the plan through which you intend to accumulate it. I'll admit to you that I have not done this the way I should have all my life, ever since I've known about the principle. Because, you know, if we were all perfect, we wouldn't need this, would we? But amazingly, you know, I have it right there in my briefcase. Kevin, I know you have yours. It's even laminated. Okay, so that your plan should be able to be put on one page. You should laminate it. You should put one in your briefcase. You should put one on your desk if you have one, and you should put one beside your bed if you have a bed. Because here's step 6. Read your written statement aloud twice daily once just before retiring at night, and once after arising in the morning. And that is the color. I don't care where you put it as long as you read it.
Aloud.
Aloud. And mix it with what? No, emotion. Mix it with emotion. Say it like you mean it. Read it aloud. It's not the same if you read it quietly to yourself. You must read it aloud, mix it with emotion. As you read, see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of the money or the goal that you want to achieve. Because if you put this into action, if you do this, you are already the new person that you talked about being in your plan. You're already there. Because you started when? Now. Now, it will take some time as you read this, because basically the only conscious decision that you have to make, the only conscious decision you have to make every single day when you get up is to read this. And every night when you go to bed to read it. Even, and listen to this carefully, even if you make bad decisions in the future and don't do what you should be doing according to your plan, that's okay, because if you will just make only the decision to consciously read this, the conscious decision to read this every day, eventually it will go into your subconscious mind, the subconscious will take over, and you will automatically do the right things. It's amazing. I still don't understand it. Well, I do understand it, kind of. But it's amazing to me how it works. And you will reach a level of communication with an infinite power, as Napoleon Hill used to call the ether. You know, everything out there was the ether. These ideas and thoughts and things are floating around in the ether. This is 1920s, okay? In the ether, okay? You will reach a level of communication with this ability to communicate on this sixth sense that will be beyond your belief. It's often been called super motivation. Have you seen people like that? Okay? I can tell you, I've been that way twice in my life. It's been a long time. I made it once when I was in my 30s. It lasted for about 3 months. I made it once when I was in my 40s, and it lasted about 3 or 4 months. Why didn't it last longer? I stopped reading my goals because everything started working so perfectly I didn't have time to read my plan anymore, and before you know it, it was gone. Was it easy to get back? No. It took a long, long time, because it took a long time to get there. But you see, all I had to do was keep reading my goals every day, and I could have probably stayed into that super motivated deal where everything goes right. It's amazing. You will look back and you will say, well, how in the world did I know to say those things to that person at that time? How did I think of that? How did that happen? I mean, how did I do that? And you'll get to that point. Very few people ever get there because very few people know how. So in my mind, it's part of our challenge in this life to help people learn about the concept. We can't make them do it. We can't make anybody do this because they may not want to. But at least I want people to know how to change your life. And this concept can change your life, pure and simple. And for me, it's the only way I know how to help people change their life. It's the only way I know how to change my life. Here's the sad part. When did I first use this? 1967, 68, 69. But I already knew about it before then. I just never really put it into practice. That's why I asked somebody to send me the book, because I already had been exposed to the book. I already knew about the concept. I had just never practiced it. And I've been teaching this and practicing it now for how many years? 70, 30, almost 40 some years. I've shown this to an awful lot of people. And here's the sad fact. Of 80% of the people I show it to who even agree to its validity. In other words, 80% of the people I show this to, they say, well, yeah, that makes sense. I agree. It's 100% right. Yada, yada, yada. Okay? Only 20% of those people will ever continue to utilize the concept over any sustained period of time. And when I mean saying sustained period of time, I'm talking about days or weeks. Think about that. I'm talking about people who saying that they aspire to be successful and who say, yes, I'm going to do that. Then only 20% of those people will ever even do it for a few weeks. Is because these old habits are still there. And if we don't make the conscious decision every day for long enough to replace them through the principle of AutoSuggestion, okay, then the old habits win. It's pure and simple. And everybody says, well, this is hard. Well, yeah, it's hard, but it's simple. In other words, we got to come back and realize again, and I'm going to harp on this, the only decision we have to make is to read the statement aloud twice daily. That's the only decision we have to make, consciously, each and every day when we get up. Everything else, even if we're total failures for the next several months, if we continue to do that, guess what? What was the principle back in the early part of the presentation? That the idea, the thought, the plan will eventually transform itself into physical equivalent, right? So is it because we don't have the desire? Because we don't have some reinforcement to have somebody to help us? It's pure and simple. Which is why the majority of the people we know are not successful. Only what we have to do in order for this to work. And Richard, I'm not sure I know exactly all the reasons why that the majority of us don't do it. I just know they don't. And I knew this, I was told this, 40 years ago, and those 40 years it's proven to be true in my experiences. Absolutely. Here's the other thing, and this is, well, it's really sad too. Of the 20% who make the serious attempt, let's say somebody does it for 3 or 4 months, and that would be a very serious attempt of the people that I know about, all right? Only 20% of those will continually do step 6 on a regular basis. I can get people to do the first 5 steps all day long. Step 6 is the key. Kevin, you and I have been doing this for how long together? 3 years. 3 years, okay. How many times have you stopped and started? A lot, okay.
And I'm starting back again.
How many times have I stopped and started over my last 40 years? Way too many times. But you know what I found is, and this is a universal truth, every time when I've gone back to this, it's amazing. Within a few weeks or a few months, things start to happen. And I'm able to recover my life and recover myself. So Richard, I guess it's part of the same reason why most of us never do it the first time. Okay? Because it's simple, but it ain't easy. Because not only are these old habits down here, but we get fed so much stuff through our conscious mind that we don't intercept and keep out. Like, for example, if you're around a person all the time who does something a different way, is it easy for you to change the way you're doing things different than what they're doing it? No. One of the reasons is because one of the things I had to learn, okay, when I wanted to change my life is that I had to be willing to give up my old friends. Because my old friends were partiers, people who didn't have a plan. They didn't live in that world. So I had to make a choice. I had to either live in a new world or my plan wasn't going to work. I had to get new people to associate with. I had to associate with people who were successful, who were doing these things. The reluctance to do the 6th step will almost guarantee your failure to change. Not necessarily your failure, but your failure to change. But also the sixth step is the one which practically guarantees one's success. So how far a person is willing to take this is an individual decision. And again, it doesn't have to be about money. It can be about any goal, anything in your life. It can be a specific goal. It can be a broad life's goal. It can be a chief aim in life. It can be a specific goal. It can be money. It can be anything. And my question is, are you willing to do the few, are you one of the few willing to do the sixth step to create the necessary desire and persistence for success? And you don't have to answer to me for that. I'm not asking you to answer to me to that. Some of you are already extremely successful. You may not want any different or any more success than what you have. But it's been my experience, most of us want more or something different than what we currently have. It may be in quality of life. It may not be in money. It may be in freedom. It may be in time. It may be in anything. It doesn't make any difference what it is. Are we willing to do the sixth step? Because the sixth step is the key. I've talked about AutoSuggestion. I want to spend a couple minutes on self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis is an extension of AutoSuggestion. One of the great courses I have taken in the past is what I call the CUP course. It's your claim to unlimited potential. And basically it's got all the stuff in it that Think and Grow Rich has pretty much. It's a 12-week course with a notebook. So there are CDs that you listen to for 45 minutes and use self-hypnosis. And so all these messages are in the CDs. Okay? There's also a worksheet every month so that you do this workbook every month, so you have different tasks, topics, exercises to do in the workbook. And you have certain affirmations to repeat every day and a lot of stuff like this. It's fairly inexpensive. I can get that for you if you want. I can tell you this. On the first organization I ever built, I built it using two principles. One was AutoSuggestion, and one was the mastermind theory. So all I did is that I taught people how to change themselves and to motivate themselves through the concept of AutoSuggestion, because I had no experience. I had no management experience, sales experience. I had no leadership experience at all when I started doing this. But all I did was offer them an idea and an opportunity, taught them the concept of AutoSuggestion so that they were self-motivated, and together, I introduced the concept of the mastermind so that we were all working toward a common goal, which was to build this agency, and was to, in the process, was to build our individual successes and to help each other be successful, and to build the agency and help the people that we were dealing with, our clients. Okay? So we utilize those two concepts. It's as simple as that. Okay? But I can tell you, we were being very successful. And about 4 years into this thing, I started using this course myself. And I even went to Michigan and visited with the person who was the hypnosis. And matter of fact, now he actually lives in Kentucky. I know his daughter real well. She's taken over the business and all this. So I stayed in touch all these years. When I did it, the course was on cassette tapes, you know what I mean? My point is that I bought this course for my management staff and the top producers, and you had to qualify for it. So the top 20 people in my organization out of 350 people. And we had a class every week for an hour to review what we were doing on these workbooks and what was happening and everything, just as like a review. Amazing thing happened is within 4 months of that, all right, our production had doubled. Doubled. It was amazing. Doubled. Of the 20 though, How many do you think completed the entire 12-month course? Only 20%. Remember, there's the other 20%. Remember? You're exactly right. Okay? Only 2 out of the 20. Yet it was helping. It was obvious to everybody that it was changing. But why didn't they keep going? Well, I can tell you part of the reason why. Because it took me, to be quite frank with you, 3 times, 3 tries at it before I ever went through it fully in a 12-week period, a 12-month period. Why is that? I'll tell you why it is.
Easy not to.
I know why it is, okay?
You're changing your internal behavior.
You cannot complete this course without becoming a different person and becoming the person you claim you want to be. You cannot do it. I'll tell you, the first time I ever tried to learn how to do AutoSuggestion, to do self-hypnosis, you know, sometimes I'd be 5 minutes into this tape and I would literally jump out of bed because my body was, you know, they were trying to put this stuff into my subconscious and I wanted it to be there. I consciously wanted it to be there, but my subconscious was saying, hey, no way, you know, get out of here. And I would react physically and literally jump out of bed when I'm supposed to be trying to relax. It took me 3 months to learn how to do self-hypnosis. My point, though, is that it works. It works. So if a person is really wanting to change and become who they say they want to be, number 1, AutoSuggestion. And then if they want to take it to the next step, talk to me about this course, okay? Because I can get it for you fairly inexpensive, and it's well worth it. And they have a real simple guarantee, okay? If you take the course, and if you don't at least increase your income by 50% or something like that within a certain period of time, they will refund you your money. How are they able to do that? Because it's online, all right? I offer that to millions of people, always have, for 40 years I've known about it, 30 years. You know why? Because they know the first thing they're going to do is they're going to ask to look for that refund. They're going to ask to look at your workbooks. And they know, looking at your workbooks, whether you've completed the course or not. If you haven't completed the course, you don't get the refund. If you have completed the course, you think you're going to be there asking for a refund? No way. Okay? No way. Okay? Let's go back and remind ourselves one more time about that there is a formula for success and that the vehicle must never be the limiting element. So success is real simple. All we have to do is find the right vehicle and then improve ourselves to the point where we can get maximum results from that vehicle. Isn't that easy and simple? Not so for everybody all the time, right? But at least we understand the concept. So next week, we'll start on the mastermind and go in a lot more in detail than you've ever gone into that before. And again, remember what I said was I used AutoSuggestion to change me, and I've used the mastermind theory to build every organization and every income stream I've ever built. Simple as that. You don't have to know anything else to build something, an organization. If you understand and utilize those 2 concepts, you can learn everything else. That's the conclusion of the AutoSuggestion, today's 1040 Talks. My number is 502-821-8094, and my blog is georgesims.com, and you can see my other websites there. So thank you for being here today, and hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.